Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing today? This is the day that the Lord has made, and I shall rejoice and be glad in it. Today, I want to talk about Hannah in the Bible, and Hannah is one of the famous women in the Bible for her faith, for her faithfulness to God, and her faith in God. She trusted God. She believed in God. She believed what she prayed to God will come true. And Hannah prayed with earnestness. She was a woman of a prayer warrior, and this is what we need today. We need women like Hannah, prayer warriors. So I'm going to read from the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel, chapter 1. There was a certain man from Rathaim, a Zuphrite, from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Ziph, an Ephraimite. He had two wives. One was called Hannah, and the other Peninnah. Peninnah had children, but Hannah had none. Year after year, this man went up from his town to worship and sacrifice to the Lord Almighty at Shiloh, where Hophni and Phinehas, the two sons of Eli, were priests of the Lord. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters. But to Hannah he gave a double portion because he loved her, and the Lord had closed her womb. Her rival kept provoking her in order to irritate her. This went on for year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the house of the Lord, her rival provoked her till she wept and would not eat. Elkanah, her husband, would say to her, Hannah, why are you weeping? Why don't you eat? Why are you downhearted? Don't I mean more to you than 10 sons? Once when they had finished eating and drinking in Shiloh, Hannah stood up. Now Eli, the priest, was sitting on a chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. In bitterness of soul, Hannah wept much and prayed to the Lord, and she made a vow, saying, O Lord Almighty, if you will only look upon your servant's misery and remember me, and not forget your servant, but give her a son, then I will give him to the Lord for all the days of his life, and no razor will ever be used on his head. As she kept praying to the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was praying in her heart, and her lips were moving, but her voice was not heard. Eli thought she was drunk and said to her, How long will you keep on getting drunk? Get rid of your wine. Not so, my lord, Hannah replied. I am a woman who is deeply troubled. I have not been drinking wine or beer. I was pouring out my soul to the Lord. Do not take your servant for a wicked woman. I have been praying here out of my great anguish and grief. Eli answered, Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him. She said, May your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went away and ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. So Hannah prayed. She prayed. Now, in this, what I get from this reading, and I find the story of Hannah to be so interesting to me as a woman, because Hannah prayed for what she wanted. She knew if she went to God the Almighty and asked him for what she wanted, he will hear her prayer. And she prayed in anguish, and she prayed in longing to her God. She prayed with a contrite heart to her God. And her lips, Eli did not hear the sound of her voice. She prayed from her heart to God. She prayed, and he could see on her face that she was distressed, that something wasn't right with her face. But Hannah prayed to the Lord. She prayed to the Lord, and Eli saw it. Eli was wondering, but Eli the priest of the temple. He was wondering, what is wrong with this lady? Is she drinking? How is she acting so different? When we are praying, and we are truly praying in earnestness and crying bitterly to God, and we are really our heart-wrenching prayers, we do look like sometimes something is wrong with us. If people see us from the outside praying, they will think something wrong with us. We drinking, or we going off or something. But we are truly praying to God, and this is what Hannah was doing. And another thing I saw in this reading, Hannah had a rival, and that was Peninnah. Peninnah was her rival. Let's say her enemy. Because Peninnah had the children for Elkanah, but Hannah couldn't have children for her husband. And in those days, to be a barren woman was a disgrace to the family, was a disgrace to a woman not to be able to have children. So Peninnah had her children, and she was, I could have children, and she would provoke Hannah because Hannah couldn't have children. And this happened year after year, and Hannah had to go through her provoking her year after year, making her feel less of nothing, making her feel worthless, making her feel that she was less of a woman because she couldn't give her husband a child. And they say that sometimes, I heard this saying, and it is true, your rivals will push you into your destiny. Your enemy will always be the one to push you into your destiny. And this is what happened with Hannah. She was provoked that she wanted to have a baby. She wanted to be the wife that would be able to produce a baby for her husband. And this is when Hannah decided to go down on her knees and pray to God. And we don't know how much times Hannah prayed to God. We don't know how much times Hannah went to pray to God. But she prayed earnestly. She pounded on heaven's door. She knocked on heaven's doors, and she did not give up until she heard God's answer. And when she would finish praying, she would walk away, and she'd feel better because she knew that God heard her prayer. Every time Hannah finished praying, Hannah will walk away and knew God would hear her prayer. That is a woman of faith. Hannah believed in God. And because of her provocation of this other woman, Peninnah, Hannah went to pray. And Hannah promised to give her son to the Lord, to give her son to the temple, to offer her son to God. She wanted to dedicate her son to live a life for God. And this is where we say our enemies push us to our destination. If Judas did not betray Jesus, if Judas was not the one to betray Jesus, Jesus would not have been able to go to the cross. But because Judas betrayed Jesus and offered and gave him up to the Roman soldiers and to the high priest, he would have not been able to go to the cross. But one of Jesus' best friend, who was Peter, did not want him to go. Peter fought in every way to keep Jesus from going to the cross. But the enemy of Jesus, the one who betrayed him, was the one who pushed him to his destiny. And this is what we have to remember. Our enemies sometimes push us to our destiny. So we should thank our enemies. We shouldn't hate our enemies. We should pray and thank our enemies, because most of the time people who are put us down will make us want to rise up and motivate us. When somebody puts you down, then you want to show them that you could even be good, that you even want to be better than what they think you are, and that is pushing you to your destiny. And this is what happened to Hannah. And Hannah prayed to the Lord. She prayed. And let me continue what happened here. Eli answered, "Go in peace." Right? This is 1 Samuel. We're going into chapter 1, verse 17. Eli answered, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant you what you have asked of him." She said, may your servant find favor in your eyes. Then she went away, ate something, and her face was no longer downcast. So she believed in God for what she was going to have. Early the next morning, they arose and worshipped before the Lord, and then went back to their home at Ramah. Elkanah lay with Hannah, his wife, and the Lord remembered her. So in the course of the time, Hannah conceived and gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, saying, "Because I asked the Lord for him." So she did have her baby boy, and he was called Samuel. So God answered her prayers. But God needed Hannah to come to that desperate point. God wanted Hannah to come to the desperate point to ask him, to ask him for a child, and to also promise to offer him to God, also promise to dedicate his life to God, because God had a plan for Samuel. Samuel was a priest who would be the one to anoint King David. Samuel was a good priest, and this is what God wanted. God wanted that Hannah to offer her son. If God gave Hannah the baby easy like he gave to Peninnah, Hannah would have said, okay, she had a baby. But because of her desperation, Hannah longing for a child, Hannah promised. She said, for God, if you give me a son, I will give him to you. I will give him back to you. I will offer him to you. I'll dedicate him to you. And when the man Elkanah went up with his family to offer the annual sacrifice to the Lord and to fulfill his vow, Hannah did not go. She said to her husband, after the boy is weaned, I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. So Hannah kept her promise. Hannah remembered the promise that she made to God. So she was faithful to God. She trusted God. She had faith in God, but she was also faithful to her word to God. She promised to give Samuel, the son that she asked God for, back to him. And she said after he is weaned, she will take him to the temple. I will take him and present him before the Lord, and he will live there always. And the husband says, do what seems best to you, Elkanah, her husband, told her. Stay here until you have weaned him. Only may the Lord make good his word. So the woman stayed at home and nursed her son until she had weaned him. After he was weaned, she took the boy with her young as he was, along with a 3-year-old bull, an ephah of flour and skin of wine, and brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. When they had slaughtered the bull, they brought the boy to Eli, who was a priest, remember him? And she said to him, as surely as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who stood here beside you praying to the Lord. I prayed for this child, and the Lord has granted me what I asked of him. So now I gave him to the Lord. For his whole life he will be given over to the Lord, and he worshipped the Lord there. So Hannah kept her promise to God. So you see what happened? Hannah had to come to that point of desperation to pray for her son and to offer him back to God, because Samuel was meant to be a priest. He was meant to be the priest that will anoint David, King David, as king. Hannah's prayer. Let's listen to Hannah's prayer. Now remember that Samuel, what we will call Samuel, is a miracle baby. That's what they will call Samuel now in this time, a miracle baby. Because remember that Hannah was barren, and then God blessed her with a baby boy. So he is called a miracle baby. And hear how Hannah's prayer went. Then Hannah prayed and said, my heart rejoices in the Lord. My heart rejoices in the Lord. In the Lord my horn is lifted high. My mouth boasts over my enemies, for I delight in your deliverance. There is no one holy like the Lord. There is no one besides you. There is no rock like our God. Do not keep talking so proudly, or let your mouth speak such arrogance. For the Lord is a God who knows, and by him deeds are weighed. The bows of the warrior are broken, but those who stumble are armed with strength. Those who were full hire themselves out for food, but those who were hungry hunger no more. So who was barren has borne 7 children, but she who had many sons pines away. The Lord brings death and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord sends poverty and wealth. He humbles and he exalts. He raises the poor from the dust, and he lifts the needy from the ash heap. He seats them with princesses and has them inherit a throne of honor. For the foundations of the earth are the Lord's. Upon them he has set the world. He will guard the feet of his saints, but the wicked will be silenced in darkness. And when I Those who oppose the Lord will be shattered. He will thunder against them from the heaven. The Lord will judge the ends of the earth. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. Then Elkanah went home to Ramah, but the boy ministered before the Lord under Eli the priest. And when I hear this prayer of Hannah, I think of the Magnificat, the prayer that Mary said when she knew she was pregnant with Jesus, and she said the Magnificat. I remember the Magnificat when I hear Hannah's prayer. So God answered Hannah's prayer, and now Samuel becomes a priest, an important man in the Bible. And this shows us that we must not give up. We must never give up on what we want in life, our desires, because God placed those desires in our heart. He placed those longings in our heart, and we must never give up on praying. We must be prayer warriors. We must go down in earnest prayers and ask God for what we want. And He will give us. He will give us what we want once it is to glorify Him. So my people, I hope that you enjoyed my reading of Hannah. I really love Hannah. And so much more to talk about Hannah. There's so much more that I want to talk about Hannah, but I will talk about it another day. I will make another video of Hannah, the story of Hannah. Okay, so have a wonderful day, my people.